Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Owning It. My name is Paia, where I talk to people who are forging their own path, who are owning it, and now empowering other people to forge their own path and to own
Ah,
it. So, I have a wonderful guest today who is helping other people do everything that I just mentioned. Please welcome Michael Pund. Did I say your name right, Michael?
Yes, you did. Yes. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited for the conversation.
Yeah, so Michael, you are the founder of Wingman Mental Health, which is an online platform mental health coaching for men, correct?
That's right. Yep.
Okay, so how did you come up with this idea?
So it's been a long journey so far, but I have been in the mental health space for years now, originally starting out helping run a children's mental health nonprofit that was creating trauma-informed, culturally responsive mental health and well-being training videos for humanitarian interventions, whether that's the wildfires in California or the Rohingya refugee crisis overseas, trying to create videos that would be accessible for those specific communities and make a difference there. Throughout the time there and through my own experiences happening in my own life of losing a relative to substance use and seeing family members and friends struggle with their mental health and well-being and not quite being able to access resources, there was a through line in this continuous passion that I found for the idea of simplifying the equation around mental health. There just has to be a way to create resources that are more relatable and approachable and accessible for your average person. So specifically for Wingman Mental Health, over the past few years, we've been crafting this model and sort of co-creating it with the communities that we're trying to serve and looking to understand what resources are out there right now, what people are able to access, and where are their gaps. And the way that I think about it is, at least most recently, is if you imagine a mountain, and let's call it Professional Support Mountain. Down in
Hmm.
the community, in the village, there's lots of community resources. You might have church, you might have family, you might have friends, and other tools and resources like that. And then on Professional Support Mountain, you have therapy up there, but there's this giant gap in the mountain. And guys, as they climb this mountain, there's three things that can happen. Either they can successfully make the jump across to get to therapy. It's a big leap, or they slip through the cracks, maybe, or thirdly, maybe they end up turning around.
Hmm.
So this is, to me, it's a massive problem and our focus right now is trying to think about how can we first and foremost plug that gap? How can we create a new resource that allows people to get started in a way that feels good to them? And although a lot of us are advocates for therapy, it's not necessarily the easiest starting point for most people. So with Wingman Mental Health, the thought is, well, what if we could take the guidance and expertise of licensed therapists and really repackage them and their work into an accessible, comfortable coaching format for guys where you're focused on growth, where you can have daily messaging with them and receive a check-in video from them at the end of the day, track tangible progress and see that in your dashboard, be able to access meditation videos and so on. And then instead of one stagnant 50-minute, let's say, session per week with your therapist, you can just schedule 30-minute sessions with them at a frequency that makes sense for your personal schedule and budget. So this is the vision that we're creating. And it's great because we're doing it in collaboration with licensed therapists and experts in the field. Nothing against coaching, but coaching in general is sort of the wild, wild west of, well, what does that even mean? What is your licensure? What is your background? What is your expertise? So now that we have this anchor of licensed therapists and the expertise there, we're able to do it in a way that is tied to not therapy necessarily. It's not therapy, but is tied to the ethical ways and best industry practices to make sure that people are taken care of in a safe and productive way. So that's where we're at now, and it's hopefully building towards a future where there's not as many guys who are sort of isolated, fighting through things on their own and figuring it out in their own ways. It's giving them sort of an olive branch of something that they can try out to make a difference in their own lives.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And so, just to clarify, not just are you a therapist by trade, or what's your background?
No, I'm not. So, and I'm very aware of that. So
Mm.
it's a blessing and a curse in some ways, because I think the good side of it is that I can be blissfully naive sometimes and have an outsider's perspective and thinking, well, that shouldn't be as complicated when it comes to receiving professional support, for example. So I can come in and say, what can we do to make a difference there? On the other side of the coin, I think it is incredibly important to build anything like this hand in hand with licensed therapists and people that have studied this and have been in the field for years and have trusted experience working with individuals. So the way that I'm combating that gap that I have is that we have an incredible clinical director and advisor named Dr. Hemini Naik, who owns a few practices in Northern Virginia and has been in this space for a long time and is able to be there to make sure that we do things the right way.
Yeah. I think you mentioned it, like, you have a advantage and disadvantage of not being in the field and also being an outsider looking in, and you're right, it shouldn't be this complicated to get help, and it's so complicated to get help. Because 'Cause I'm a therapist, and I know
Mhm.
how hard it is for people to get help.
Yes, it's very complicated. And I think many of us who have been on both sides of the equation, either in trying to provide accessible support or receive support ourselves, have recognized the hoops that we need to jump through. And I
Mhm.
think that I'm not sure if you've gone to therapy yourself or received different levels of support, but I think that even if we've gotten there, we've realized that one, that wasn't the easiest thing. And two, if I needed to bring this to somebody else in my life who could use the support, it wouldn't be as easy as I would hope. We would need
Mhm.
to figure out their insurance. We would need to figure out their current budget. We would need to figure out who's available in their
What their
area and taking new
deductible
patients
is.
and so on. So it's just an
Yeah.
equation that we can make a difference. What's that?
Deductible. Most people don't even know what a deductible is, and when they get a
Exactly.
bill, they're like, "Why am I being charged $200?" It's like, "Well, your deductible is $3,000, and after you meet that deductible, then you pay 20%." Most people don't even understand that.
Exactly. Exactly. It's too complicated. And this of course applies to insurance in general and any
Yeah.
medical care that you might receive. But I've found that it's especially sticky when we're talking about receiving mental health support. It's the downstream consequences of many people not receiving the support that they need are unacceptable. So these friction points or barriers to people receiving that support need to change. And it feels like we're far past the point where this needed to have changed 5, 10, 15 years ago.
Exactly, exactly. So, you mentioned that this has been, years in the making.
Mhm.
If you're comfortable sharing, what was going on in your life that made you decide, "I need to find something to help other people"? If you're whatever it is that you're comfortable sharing with us.
Sure, and I mentioned a bit of it before, but I'll tie some other pieces in as well. So I lost a relative to substance use, right? And I constantly asked myself, well, what could have been done differently? And one of the big illuminating thoughts that I had was, well, the options available to them would not work for him. He would never have gone to traditional therapy, at least to my knowledge. So, but what if we could have provided something that he could have used on an everyday basis to make a difference? So there's examples like that, and then there's in my own life and dealing with stress and anxiety and just other everyday factors and irritability and these small changes that you might see as you start to get older. um, I found and I tried different options. I tried online therapy. I tried this cool platform that did group therapy to talk through the different challenges that you're going through, and they were great, but they didn't solve the problems for me in a way that made sense. I even tried a platform where you could message with a licensed therapist, and it felt very robotic. It felt as though we weren't able to build rapport and a relationship where we could have mutual trust and sort of where I could know that I could lean on that person to get actionable advice that would make a difference for me personally in my story. So you have pieces like that, and then I have the stories that are constantly surrounding us of people that are losing their lives and the extreme examples to depression and suicide. And I'm one of 4 boys. I have 3 brothers, and I always worry about those situations. That is the doomsday scenario, right? And having to wonder if something goes wrong, of, well, what could you have done differently to make a difference? And I think whether it's my brothers or it's any of the other men in my life, I think that I feel this strong passion and commitment to proactively creating resources that will be approachable and relatable for them. I think that that's the vision in the future that I'm hoping to create, where even if you ultimately end up deciding not to use these resources, that you know that they were available to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Hearing you talk about your own experience and how you felt frustrated, I'm not surprised, because the thing is, therapy is very slow. And
Mm,
as therapists, we were taught never to give you advice. And in coaching, you need that advice. You need actionable, you need the action to do what it is. It's like being a personal trainer. You go to a
mm,
personal trainer because you're like, I need to know what kind of exercises I need to do. And being a therapist, it's like, no, let's process this. Let's go. So what do
yeah.
you think you need, Michael? And it's like, I just need you to tell me what to do, Paya. Just,
Yes.
and I've had clients that said that to me in therapy. They're like, Paya, can't you just tell me what to do? And I'm like, I can't tell you that. And they get frustrated. And it's like, then why are you even here to help me? And I would explain the intention is for you to come up with your own solutions, because I'm not always going to be there for you. And so
Hmm.
that's therapy. It's like, you need to think what is best for you. And coaching, it's like, what is best for me? It's not like it's direct, but it's like, okay, have you tried this? Have you tried that? So it's very more collaborative.
Yes, I absolutely agree. And I think the one caveat to that that I would mention from my personal perspective is that I don't view um, mental health coaching as directive. I still see it as something where you are drawing these different insights out of people by asking them the right questions and being there for them in their corner and developing game plans together and working towards them in a very accessible way. Where I draw the line is that I think of therapy as in the spirit and the world of providing diagnoses and potentially providing medication, and it is treating mental illness, and all those different pieces, right? So it's a more acute basis for treating mental health challenges, whereas mental health coaching, in the way that I see it, is not that we're not going to talk about serious things together, but we're not necessarily going to go back all the way into your childhood and process everything that happened there. We are firmly not, again, in the world of mental illness. What we are
Mhm.
going to focus on is the specific goals that you have in your life, your mental health and well-being, and then unpacking that into the challenges and roadblocks that are in your way from getting there, and then working together collaboratively on that actionable plan so that you can sort of build the life that you want.
Yeah, yeah. So, you mentioned men and therapy. In your experience,
Mhm.
what do you think it is about therapy that men are like, I don't need therapy?
So I've been fortunate to interview over 100 guys in the development of this platform, most of
Mhm.
them in this sweet spot, I would call it, between 30 and 50 years old, that are characterized as early to mid-career working professionals. In coming from the perspective of, I don't know everything. Sure, I'm a guy myself. Sure, I have my own experiences, but let's learn from the gaps and challenges that a lot of other people are facing. And what I learned in this process is that we've come an extremely long way in decreasing the stigma around mental health, to the end that most of the guys that we talk to aren't necessarily scared of therapy. They even have a somewhat nuanced understanding of what therapy is in most cases. It's just that in their minds, therapy is for other people. Therapy is
Sorry, I got
something.
to chuckle because I hear a lot of men say that. That's why I'm chuckling. It's not for me, it's
Yes.
for other people. So yeah, that's why I'm chuckling.
Yeah, and I agree, and it's interesting though, because it's a lot of these guys still think that therapy is only for people who are broken and need to be fixed. And sure, there's a time and a place for that, but not broken, but you know what I mean. For those
Yeah,
more
I
acute
do.
situations.
It's like I'm not like that. I don't have their kind of issues. I'm not that.
Yeah, so exactly. So most of the guys that we talk to are more in the headspace to sort of get to the point here, more in the headspace of listening to podcasts and reading self-improvement books and trying to figure out how to get to the gym more and start eating better and maybe getting a better relationship going with their spouse and having more time to spend with their kids and figuring out work-life balance and all of that, right? That's how they think about their mental health and well-being. Not everyone, but the majority of the guys that we talk to. And that does not, those challenges in the way that they see them, we found, don't necessarily tie to therapy in the way that they
Mhm.
view it. So there are a lot of therapy platforms out there. There's a lot of therapy services out there. But in my view, in doing a scan of them, a lot of them are asking a lot of guys. They're saying, for you to get started in receiving support, you need to rise to the level of therapy. And it goes back to that mountain that I painted the picture of earlier. You need to rise to that level. And I'm coming from a headspace of, well, even if therapy is great, what if we said, wherever you're at, whatever you think about therapy and why it may not be a good fit for you, you're right. That's fine. You're right. You don't need to start with therapy. Let's create together a resource that you actually want to get started with. And if that ladders up to therapy, that's great. If it's a standalone option for you to go through and then go back on your merry way with the goals and tools and systems that you've developed, then that's great too.
Yeah. So when you mentioned the mountain, there's the in
Mm-hmm.
between, and so we're expecting people to be down here to be up here, and Wingman is kind of like the in between then.
Yes. So it's so if you imagine that gap in the mountain that guys have to jump over, if you almost think of Mount Everest and the scary parts with the ladders that you have to climb
Mhm.
over, right?
Yeah.
That's what we're asking of guys, right? You have to do this really potentially scary thing that is a big leap for you or uncomfortable for you to get started with. And what I'm saying is that let's fill that gap in. Let's give you something that you can get started with that is more relatable and accessible for you. And what we've learned in working, especially with Dr. Nake, is that there's this great opportunity for that to be a ladder up if they want to, again, to therapy. But then even for people who have tried therapy before or currently are going through therapy, is that, well, what happens when you graduate, aka terminate from therapy? What do you do from there? And therapists in our interviews have mentioned, well, you sort of have to kick them out of the nest. It's that
Yep.
it's time.
18, go live your life now, child. Yeah.
Exactly. So what we're thinking is that this could be an amazing step down option for guys. It's more of, okay, well, let's put you on the maintenance plan now
Mhm.
with Wingman Mental Health for something to make sure that you're sustaining everything that we've worked on together in therapy.
Yeah, yeah. So most of your sample were ages 30 to 50, and you mentioned
Mhm.
stress, family, burnout. What else are things that seem to be challenges that age group is facing from 30 to 50?
So I think a lot of it ties nowadays to work-life balance and work specifically. So many people are working from home, and it's like, well, how do you not carry your work into the home setting and your relationships and the irritability that you have there? Also, just within work in general, how can I be as productive as I'd want to with all the distractions that are happening nowadays? How can I
Mhm.
reach the goals and maintain and manage my expectations in a strong way and potentially reach my goals in a more systematic way instead of being anxious and stressed all the time? How do I better manage those relationships with my manager? Because it's something that is impacting me now and carrying through into my personal life. So I think is a big focus of it. And then I think a second piece is relationships in general. So people are having challenges with their parents, or they're having maybe they're aging parents, or maybe they're having challenges with their children. They're a new dad. We've been talking to some new dads recently who are in this whole new world. They're dealing with the stressors of work. They're trying to figure out how to be there, be present, and be a great dad. But then there's certain pieces of their life that are falling to the wayside. Maybe they're not getting to the gym anymore as much as they'd like to. Maybe there's other parts of their life that they want to be successful in that just aren't happening. Maybe their relationship with their spouse isn't functioning in the way that it used to. So there's just these opportunities that are happening and spiking in their life where pieces were running on all cylinders before, and then now that new responsibilities have come in, there's parts that are starting to fall off, and that's where we can come in.
Yeah. So life transitions then, life transitions, life
Mhm.
adjustments. And it's funny because as a therapist, if they were using their insurance, we would have to give them a diagnosis. And we always joke as therapists, we always put like adjustment disorder with anxiety or with anxiety and depression because that's the only way that insurance would reimburse for that type of life stress and transitions. So, and then after a while, it's like, well, you can't use adjustment disorder anymore after 6 months. And so, yeah, you're right. You're right about that. So, you know, with insurance therapy, it's very tricky, and they don't need the level of therapy, but they need the help of therapy. And so it's not aligned. So it's like, what do you do here?
Right. Exactly. It's a tough equation, and it's tough for everyone involved too. Of course, we're in a dynamic where you have therapists that are historically very underpaid or under reimbursed from insurance companies. They are short on time. They are frequently burnt out from the heavy caseloads that they're dealing with, and
Yeah.
constantly being pushed to be more productive and support more clients. And it's just an equation where the incentives are out of balance and multiple stakeholders are losing. So there just needs to be new interventions and new ways of thinking about this that allows for people to have balance across the board, whether they're clients or whether they're therapists themselves.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Sorry, I'm not gonna sneeze here. So I'm
You're
not gonna
good.
sneeze. It's a cold day here in Minnesota. It's raining. It's very comfortable. So, yeah. And so, what do you find that men are wanting
How do you
in
mean?
their overall well-being? Like, what do you find that men are wanting?
So what we're finding men are wanting, and you'll see, and I'll be transparent. We are far from figuring out the exact way to package Wingman and build it out from both a product standpoint and the messaging and what we're saying to make it as relatable and as approachable as possible. We're not there yet, but
Mhm.
we are a constant work under progress in trying to co-create and collaborate with these communities to better understand them and then reflect that. But from what we've learned so far and what we're building on top of is a foundation and understanding that men in these communities are more, if you think of Whoop, right, and the ability, if you're familiar with it, and the ability to tangibly track your progress from your physical
Mhm.
health and able to
Mhm.
check in on that and feel like, for a lack of a better term, you're in control. You are in the driver's seat of your overall health and the tracking that you're doing with your Whoop. The spirit that the tie-in and that we have with mental health is, from our conversations, is a lot of guys want the exact same thing for their mental health. It's that they're in the headspace of being less in processing and more in tangible goals. They want to see the actionable results from the work that they're putting in on a daily basis. A lot of them understand the value of tracking. They know that you improve what you track. I think the expression is something like that. So they want to be able to check in on themselves on a daily basis. They want to be able to set up clear and tangible goals, have somebody in their corner, and then see the fruits of their labor.
Yeah. So it's like the tangible evidence. I want to see, hey, all my work and effort is, for something.
Yes, exactly. And I think that there can be challenges with that, but I think
Mhm.
the way that we're seeing it at Wingman is looking at that at face value. It's, well, what can we do? How can we marry the best practices from the therapy world and the trust that we have there and the evidence-based practices with what guys are saying that they want today? And I think that happy medium is what we're working towards with Wingman.
Yeah, yeah. So you and I had this conversation when we first met, and so therapists, we can be very protective about our work and who comes in and tries to benefit from our work. And so what what I guess, like, how are you, like, again, you're not a therapist,
Mhm.
so therapists can get kind of protective and say, what makes you think, Michael, that you can come and do this when you don't have the experience, or
Mhm.
you don't know how to work with clients, that you're coming doing all this? No, not I know not a lot of them are thinking, but some of them are very protective. What I guess, like, what makes you feel that you not have the right, but that you can be successful at this?
It's a great question, and I think it's a very real reality of the
Mhm.
environment that we're working in, is that in mental health, we're in the business world, right? So there's a
Yeah.
lot of people that see opportunities because there's so many gaps and challenges here in the industry. And I think that naturally you get some bad actors or people that are slightly misguided in developing companies, without naming names, that um, that do everything to grow and serve their clients despite the therapists and the providers that work within their systems. It's the last checkbox to take care of their therapists. So I think I have the right to operate in this space because of the work and energy and time that I've put into understanding the work that's been done before, where people have gotten it wrong, what are the voices of therapists and the problems that they have with the solutions that are being built, and how many times they're not being included along in the journey, and then building something that is reflective of everything that I've seen so far. So what that looks like tangibly is that I'm not just building a platform that will serve clients. I see it as two-sided. We are trying to build something that is genuinely mutually beneficial, that serves the clients, hopefully in a very accessible, approachable, relatable, affordable way. While on the other side of it, creating an amazing opportunity for therapists that have lots of experience also in the coaching world to be able to supplement their income in a way that flexes to their schedule. So before, I mentioned you have all of these therapists that are undercompensated and they're burnout and they're asked to do more and more with these heavy workloads. Instead of taking on another extremely acute client, let's say, there's an opportunity here for them to maybe mix in a few subacute clients, a few guys that are working on these goals and the everyday changes that they need to make in order to build, again, the life that they want. So I think it all comes back to answer your question on why I have the right. I think it comes down to intentionality. And I think it comes down to, number two, have you done the work? Have you immersed yourself in this space instead of coming from a position of saying, I have everything figured out, I know a better way? It's how can I first start by doing the work, having the right conversations with the experts, and then building along with them as we go along this journey and building Wingman Mental Health.
Yeah, wonderful. Um, because I asked that question because a lot of therapists are going to say, "Well, Michael, you're like a tech bro. You're another tech bro." you know,
Yeah,
and
right.
yeah, and so especially if you're like from the West Coast or East Coast, and they're going to say you're just another tech bro wanting to benefit from mental health therapists and
Yeah,
using our skills and knowledge, and what makes you feel like you know more than we do. And
yeah.
so, not that I question that, but a lot of
You
therapists
should.
will. Yeah. I
I think
questioned
that
that
there's.
in the past too,
Mhm.
and I've met you, so I'm like, this Michael seems like a cool dude, so I'll
Yes,
give him the
I
benefit
think
of the doubt.
I think the one two pieces. One, I think you should question it with any mental health startup or company in general that is coming forward. I think that there's, again, a lot of room for innovation, but there's a lot of room for people to do things the wrong way. And of course, the most concerning part about that is the safety and security of patients. Second to that, very close, 1B is the mental health, well-being, and financial livelihood of therapists. So I think that we need to do our work there always when we're investigating or talking to new companies in the space. The one piece that I'll tie on to this that I think could be another concern now that we're in this lane that people might have is there's this notion that we want to empower therapists to work at the top of their license. And some could argue that I am creating an environment for them to not work at the top of their license, to be able to step more into this coaching space. And I think that at face value, the idea of encouraging people to work at the top of their license makes a lot of sense. And I think we want to do that, for example, in decreasing the administrative load that therapists have to make sure that they're using their time effectively to do the work that matters most to them. However, I think that therapists are not operating in a vacuum where they can take on an unlimited supply of new clients, especially acute clients, and not be burnt out. So I think that there needs to be more control and levers at the disposal of therapists to customize their workload and plug and play with different people in a way that makes sense, not only for their communities that they're serving, but for their own mental health and well-being.
Yeah. Great answer. And I appreciate that. Again, I asked this question because a lot of therapists are going to have reservations about, another platform utilizing mental health therapists for their advantage. And so so that's why I wanted to ask that question.
I appreciate it.
When, as a therapist, some clients are very specific about who they want to work with, like what type of provider. They want someone who is like the same race, close in age, similar background. And for Wingman, since this is marketed towards men, does it matter on the provider if it's a man, woman, or whatever they identify with as?
Yes and no. So one thing, the first piece I would mention is that coaches of all genders are welcome on our platform, and we make that very clear in sort of our messaging is that come one, come all to join the platform. What matters is your background and expertise and your interest and capacity to potentially support clients on our platform. So that's the first piece I'll mention. The second part is we don't have that many coaches on our platform right now. So there's not the ability to customize to, I want an Asian coach in their 40s who specializes in life transitions. We're not quite there yet. And there's also a question to be had of, is that the right thing to do to have that level of customization available to clients? So as is with our limited set of coaches, we're matching more so based on the goals that people have and the expertise of the coaches. So we do have a coach that specializes in life transitions that will match clients. We do have another coach that specializes in the everyday manifestations of stress and anxiety and how to work towards goals that allow you to alleviate them. We do have another coach that specializes more so in the physical side of things and how they tie to mental health and the goals that you might have around eating better and getting to the gym and so on from a mental health coach's perspective. So that's the way that we're thinking about it for now.
Okay. So not to the point of customization yet, but really more focus on the intention and outcomes of what the client is looking for.
That's right. And I would say that we will have some more customization in the future. I think that something that we played with before and then took away, and then should you have the preference of the gender of your coach? Maybe that's something that's important to you. And within reason, we like to do that matching now with the limited coaches that we have. But beyond that, it's a bit out of scope for at least for the time being. Maybe in the future, 6 months down the road, there'll be much more customization available to people if that's something that they're interested in.
Yeah. Is there an ideal client that that Wingman is trying to reach, or no?
So yes and no. I would say no in the sense that anybody's more than welcome. But of course, from a marketing perspective, you need to start somewhere and you need to focus. And where we've seen the most traction so far, I mentioned it before, those early to mid-career working professionals. A lot of the people that we've had have, for one reason or another, have been business owners, right? Because you think of them as the prototype of somebody who's extremely busy and balancing a lot of different pieces in their life, and value the investment in receiving professional support from a mental health coach. Maybe they've even tried an executive coach or therapy before, and they can see this as something that is an alternative to the options that they've exercised in the past. So that's one prototype. Another example is that new dad, somebody who is going through a life transition and trying to balance everything that's happening in their life while having this other full-time job in being a parent. So those are some of the people that we've had so far. But I would say the sweet spot to really answer your question, again, is those early to mid-career working professionals, people who have the ability potentially to pay for something like this as an investment in their overall mental health and well-being, and have potentially gotten to the point in their lives where they're saying, all right, I've tried to do X, Y, Z on my own to balance everything, to hit the goals that I want to, and it's just not sustainable. It's time to tag somebody else
in. Mm-hmm. I like how you said it. It's an investment.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people, I think people in general, and again, this is nothing against people. It's the system, is people investing in your mental well-being is an investment. And if you let it go, it's gonna go.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. It's an analogy that I think of, especially in men's mental health, is a high performance car, a supercar. I don't have anything like that, but if you have,
You don't have a McLaren in your garage?
no, I don't think I ever will. But if you think of that supercar, right? You would never in a million years, if you owned that thing, wait for it to break down, bring it into the shop. You would know that just that you need to maintain it, that you need to put some investment and some work into keeping it operating on all cylinders in order to be able to respect and give it the life that it should have and to get the value out of it that you want. So there's this parallel in mental health where it just doesn't make sense to me that a lot of guys wait to break down to go receive that acute level of support from therapy. And what we're trying to say is you don't have to do that. It doesn't, just because a McLaren, a supercar, needs some maintenance doesn't mean that you've lost the value or that car is worthless. It is an incredible machine, just like our brains. It just needs some time and attention to maintain it and get it to the place that you want it to be.
Yeah. And, it's so interesting that you mentioned when they hit crisis is when they reach out. And when they hit crisis, it is crisis. It's really crisis, where it's to the point where it's like, okay, is it hospitalization? What is it? It's, and I hope that nobody ever gets to that point before they reach out for help too.
Absolutely. I think that it's too far gone at that point, not in the sense that you can't receive support and for it to be incredibly helpful and transformative and get you back to a good place. But that is a painful way to do things. That is something that is preventable, that there's no reason why we can't think ahead and start to recognize some of the signs of things that are changing in our life. Again, always disclaimer, I'm not a mental health professional, but there's no reason from a common sense standpoint that we can't recognize some of those changes and start to alleviate them and put some game plans in place so that we don't get to that crisis scenario.
Yeah. Yeah. And, so when I look at Wingman, we talked about this, you're not therapy, you can be in the between, or you could be the maintenance after therapy. So it's very much like a resource in my mind.
Yes, it is a tool. It is a medium. It is a potential step up. It is a potential step down. It is something that, to cut through it all, is an easier starting point. What would be a good analogy? I love a good analogy if you haven't picked up on that yet. I think that it would be like, somebody wants to become a good swimmer, so that the way you start having them train is to do a a race on their first day, right? It is a tall order. They might struggle. They might even hurt themselves out there. They'll become
Mm-hmm.
demoralized, and it is just a recipe for disaster. And I don't think it's quite the same thing when we're tying it to the mental health world, but it's just that we need to make a lower friction starting point that fits into people's lives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree. You don't throw someone in, expect them to be an Olympian. You have to start somewhere. And maybe after you're an Olympian, Michael Phelps is like, okay, I'm not an Olympian, but I still want to keep swimming.
That's a great point too, right? It's on the maintenance side of things. On the other side of things is that it shouldn't be all or nothing. It shouldn't be Olympian or nothing. It shouldn't receiving acute mental health support through therapy or nothing. It should be more of a continuum, more of a spectrum, more of ability to provide one size fits all support and create support that just blends into the way and to the way that people think about their mental health and well-being, and to use a sometimes overused phrase in the mental health field, meet people where they are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. I was gonna say, so it's like a resource. And are you hoping to like collaborate with like companies or groups or whoever to kind of talk more about like Wingman or no?
Yes, clarifying question there. What do you mean for talking about Wingman?
Like kind of like going out there and putting out your brand, saying, hey, we are this service. There's a lot of, so like there's like Spring Health. I used to work like Spring, Modern, all of them.
Mm-hmm.
There are mental health platforms out there for like companies. Like for Wingman, do you feel like there could be a collaboration with you and like I don't know, like maybe men's groups or certain groups that
Yeah.
really kind of would benefit from your services?
Absolutely. So that's a great question, and I think it's an important question and point, because I never envision Wingman to be the end all be all for anybody. I think that that's one of the problems within the ecosystem at large within men's mental health, is that it takes a lot for a guy to try something, and then if it's not the right fit, a lot of the times they go back to square one and don't use anything. Right? They go to therapy, they find somebody who's not the right fit, and now they're back on their own. So I think whether it's therapy, it's coaching, it's executive coaching, it is peer support, it is church support, anything else, what I'm creating, not by myself, but starting to be in collaboration with other organizations around, is how do we create a no ego, fluid ecosystem where we can all say that none of us are the one-stop shop. Let's make sure that we understand each other's work and can collaborate with each other and refer people to each other as need be. So an example of that, you mentioned men's groups, is that it's not official yet. I'm not sure if I should be talking about it, but it is a new partnership with an organization called WeBus, which is an incredible organization that is a group of about 150 dads, and they communicate asynchronously through short videos in an app called Marco Polo. And their one rule is that we don't provide advice. So nobody's providing advice because nobody's an expert and everybody's experience is different. But what we can do is we can share our own experiences. We can feel not as alone in everything that we're going through. So the partnership that we have getting started with them is that if somebody either in their onboarding or on an ongoing basis mentions that they could use professional support, or maybe they just signal that they need professional support, then WeBus can refer out to us as an organization. And similarly, if somebody mentions to Wingman that they could really use peer support and they're a dad, well, then we send them WeBus's way. So that's the way that we're thinking about it. And hopefully that multiplies across a lot of different organization types and creating this no ego, low ego, collaborative, fluid environment that best serves our communities. And I'm thinking about that, of course, can we connect with gyms on the physical fitness side of things? Can we connect to military and veteran organizations? Can we connect with more dad groups? Can we connect with business leaders and executive groups that we can tap into each other for? So that's the one piece is, yes, 100%, absolutely. Let's collaborate. Let's focus on where men are already congregating, especially in dads groups. But then to the other side of your question, I know this is a bit long-winded here, but
Oh,
to the
no,
other side, the other side of your question is, you mentioned employers, right?
Mhm.
That is something we have a page listed for on our website. We don't have any partnerships set up there yet, but we do envision, and we're starting to build and have the conversations to understand how we can serve those clients potentially. And thinking through the lens of, we don't want to just be another mental health platform. They have the Springs, they have the Lyras and those different platforms. But what are gaps do they have right now in the support that's being provided? What does the utilization for those mental health resources look like for men? And what would it mean for them to potentially provide a more relatable and approachable resource for their male employees? So those are some of the different channels that we're thinking about.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I was shaking my head when it said gym. I'm like, yep, that's where you all need to be. So
Yeah,
it's just my own experience, people work on the outside. They don't work on the inside. If you don't work on your inside, the outside is not going to matter after a while.
absolutely. And I think that's, again, we mentioned the phrase meet people where they are. I think where
Yeah.
a lot of guys are is they're focused on their physical health. That's the starting point.
Yeah.
So I think that the more we can recognize that and find ways to use that as a starting point and then ladder up from there in the gym partnership scenario, the more we can create partnerships that really make sense for your average guy.
Yeah. What is the average guy, by the way? You mentioned 30 to 50 business owners, new dads. Like, what is the average guy?
Well, I think
Who
we're
is
all
the
different.
average guy,
So
I should
yeah,
say?
I think we're all different, so I don't want to overemphasize the term average guy, because what is an average guy? But I think that doesn't mean that you can't start to recognize themes and
Mhm.
commonalities and shared pain points and lived experiences of people. So that's where you hear some of the pieces and the anecdotes that I mentioned earlier of people that are having a tough time with the new transition to becoming a dad, or having time with work-life balance and those different pieces. But I think, to answer your question, the average guy, in the way that I envision it, is somebody that probably is dealing with too much stress or anxiety in their day-to-day life, that probably is relatively resilient in their ability to manage things, that sees themselves as somebody who's mostly good, that probably doesn't need therapy, but knows and recognizes that they could probably use something. They don't know what it is, but they
Mhm.
know that it is a lot and can often be overwhelming to tackle the obstacles in their life all on their own.
I like that description.
I don't
It
know that
it
it's perfect, but that's the way I'm
it
thinking
sounds
about
like
it.
your typical, American man.
What's that?
It sounds like your typical American man, and when I say typical, I don't mean that in a negative way at all. Stress, burnout, that's, like, the big thing right now in this country.
I think the stat I saw is, I need to fact check this because it was a few months ago. I believe it was over 70% of American men are dealing with extreme levels of stress or anxiety. Which, as somebody who has experienced that on my own, of course, when you, again, from a non expert perspective, but from my own personal anecdote, when you let that ruminate under the surface for a long time, it can come out in ways that you might not even necessarily correlate to the origin. Stress and anxiety, maybe you start to see challenges with work-life balance, or your inability to get to the gym, or your irritability, or the way that you communicate in your relationships. And I think that it's just this incredible opportunity that we have here to think about that number, to think about your average guy, to think about what they deal with, and hopefully introduce new interventions that make it so that, you know what, they are willing to try something.
Mhm. Yeah. When you were talking, the word that came out was vulnerability. Do you find that it's hard to be vulnerable for men, or no? To admit that, I need
100%.
something, but I don't know what it is. Do I do it? Do I not? Is that still something that is hard for men to say and feel like, this is vulnerable. I don't want to be vulnerable.
Yes, and so I would say, one, I don't speak, of course, for all men, But I
Not the
can,
spokesperson for men, all men.
no, I'm just one guy.
Okay, we'll give
But
you that pass.
thank you. But I can speak to some of the research and the conversations and anecdotes and through lines that we found and all of the pre-work that we've done in developing the solution. And I think there's this strange, strange thing that's happening where most of the guys that we would talk to would outwardly say that they have trouble being vulnerable. They feel as though they need to figure everything out on their own. In order to create and maintain this image of self-worth, that they are a provider, that they are somebody that is able to deliver for their families, that they are somebody that is the source of strength and in their families and resilience, and maybe their other family members can lean on. They're the person that has it all figured out. So, but the strange thing that's happening is that despite a lot of guys having that self-awareness, they still didn't feel as though therapy or any of these traditional support options were for them. They felt as though doing that would be them waving the red flag and saying that I need help, that I am too far gone, that I am not the person that I thought I was or my family thought I was. So I think that's the reality that we're dealing with a lot of men.
Mm-hmm. That's a lot of responsibility.
Yes, it's an incredible weight that
Mm-hmm.
most guys are carrying around.
Yeah. Yeah, and it kind of reminds me, whenever you go to, take a flight, they're always like, help yourself before you help other people.
Yes, absolutely. I think that it's interesting that you put it that way, right? Because it starts to paint this picture where men not dealing with these things, not being proactive, letting them go to the extreme scenarios, it doesn't only affect them, right? I mentioned the symptoms earlier of the interactions that they're having with their family members, and maybe their relationships are falling to the wayside, but then also can have extreme downstream consequences for their entire ecosystem, whether it's their employees or their colleagues, or it's their business partners, or it is the people that they see on the street on a day-to-day basis, or their clients and so on. It's everybody starts to feel it eventually. So there's just this great need to be proactive within this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's like with social work, we taught you're the person and you're the person environment. If you don't take care of yourself, everything else in your ecosystem is going to start falling apart.
Yes, absolutely. What is it? You put your mask on first. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that makes a lot of sense. Or
Like put your air on before you help anybody else. When
or
you do
you can't
that
pour from
mode,
an
you're
empty
trying
cup.
to listen, but you're not really listening.
Yes, exactly. So I agree. I think that there's a lot of that going on, and I think that the more you think about it, the compound effects, to think of this glass half full, right? The compound effects of bringing forward new interventions that allow you to nip some of these challenges in the bud at an earlier stage could be tremendous for the entire ecosystem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I know, you can't speak for all men. And from your studies, what do you think will help men? Like for the people who are in their lives, the moms, their wives, girlfriends, sisters, aunts, how can we best help them?
I think that's a tough one. I had somebody reach out to me the other day that was a friend, actually, that was thinking maybe Wingman could be helpful for somebody in their life. And they saw that they just knew that that person's incredibly resistant to receiving any kind of support anytime they mention anything whatsoever. So I don't have a golden rule or ticket for this, but I think it's something that I want to think about. I want to, just like I'm trying to lower the friction to get started here for a guy that could find our platform. I understand that with therapy, for example, the starting point for a lot of guys is their wives saying, you need to go to therapy, or basically signing them up for the process and bringing them into it. Or maybe it starts as couples therapy and then it's individual therapy for the guy. So I think that this is something that we need to be incredibly intentional about. I think if I were to take a hack at how we need to try to answer your question on how spouses and family members can bring this to guys, is that I think we need to take the focus off of them, if that makes sense. It's not, to tie back to that stigma that I mentioned earlier of, oh, I'm broken, I need to be fixed. It can't be this, I have this thing, you need to go to it because you're ruining XYZ. I think it more so needs to come from a growth-based lens on the goals that we want to achieve together. And hey, I heard about this awesome thing that allows you to, maybe they're familiar with Whoop, right? That allows you to manage your mental health in the same way as you do with your physical health. So creating these bridges between the other parts of their life that they can already relate to, that would make them potentially think, wait, I do that for everything else. Why don't I just do that for my mental health too?
Yeah, I don't mean to chuckle, but I'm like, it's all about language.
It is. It's very fragile in that way, and that's something that we're trying to study. And I don't have it figured out by any means. I think that the language that you see on Wingman today will probably be radically different even 2 months from now. And honestly, I don't think we'll have it figured out then, or a year from now, or 6 months. I think the language needs to constantly evolve in order to make it as effective and relatable for the communities that we're working with when we're talking about men's mental health.
I agree. Things are always changing. A lingo is always, coming and going. And yeah, that's part of wellness is things come and go really quick.
Yes, absolutely. So I think that one thing that I would mention for anybody listening to this too is that whether you're a therapist or some other subject matter expert, or you're a guy yourself that just potentially might want to use this platform, we're not only thinking about it at Wingman from like a grow perspective. Please sign up, although it would be great if you signed up. But we also are trying to collaborate and co-create with these communities. So we want to hear your feedback. If there's language that you see that doesn't make sense, or that's not relatable, or that's missing the mark, let us know so that we can start to make this thing better and get it into the hands of more people that could use it.
Agreed. Yeah. Yeah. For anyone who's watching this, put down in the comments what you feel would be helpful, what's not helpful. And yeah, language is everything.
Absolutely.
That
is terrifying. I have a little, sorry, pause. I gave a music box to my wife on our wedding day, and it just started playing music on its own.
This is not the first time it started playing music by itself, is it?
Yep, the first time in a year now.
What? Maybe this is a blessing. Maybe this is a sign.
I agree. Something good is happening.
Something good is happening, and I'm involved. So bring me the luck. Bring me the luck music box. Yeah, that's.
Sorry for the disruption.
No, that's cute though. Okay, yeah, it's gonna bring both of us a lot of blessings, apparently. So,
I like
it. What else is I gonna say? Goodness. So yeah, we talked about that. Like, what is your? We talked about constant change. Like, is there an ultimate end game? Not end game, but what is the ultimate? What do you hope for this? Like for Wingman?
I hope that we can get it to a point where it is known. Well, my first checkbox is I want to help a solid amount of people, right? So like I want to figure out this language that we're talking about. Yes, we're just starting out and we have new customers coming in, but I want to be able to sort of hit the nail on the head where it starts to spread through word of mouth through guys and communities, whether it's in gyms or men's groups and so on, of saying, hey, you got to try out Wingman. This thing's pretty cool. And I found it really helpful for improving my mental health and well-being in a very actionable, progress-focused way that you can trust. So I think that's sort of the first checkbox, is to get that validation. And then I think from there, what I envision for Wingman is I want it to become the go-to starting point for men's mental health. And the reason why you or somebody else might see that as a challenge is, well, it's just the mental health coaching. There's a lot of resources out there, and it would be a great call out. So V1 is we're trying to be extremely intentional and focused on this being mental health coaching. I think V3, let's call it that, of what this could look like is being able to, when we get these guys that come in, doing a proper assessment and then continuously triaging them to the right resources, so that no matter at any given point in time, no matter what their challenges are, no matter what their budget is or what they have time for or what their affinities are, we can get them to the right place. That's the vision that I hope to create.
It sounds like a beautiful vision here. And I don't know of a lot of other platforms like yours. And if there are, if anybody's watching this, let me know, put it down in the comments. But I feel like you're probably one of the only platforms that I know of thus far that is a mental health coaching, not another mental health platform, because there's lots of them, mental health coaching for men specifically.
Yes, there are some platforms out there that are similar in some ways, but I haven't seen anything that is quite like ours. A men's mental health platform that offers mental health coaching. Number one, I think that is few and far between, if any. And then adding on top of that, this differentiator that I mentioned earlier is I haven't seen. Feel free for anybody to call me out who's watching this, but I haven't seen any other platforms that require all coaches to be licensed therapists. So I think that there's a blessing and a curse with that. The blessing is that we're in a new space, and if we can figure out the language around it and the packaging of it, we can make a really big difference and carve out our own lane. I think the curse side of it is that in anything where you're carving out a new space or a new niche, there's a level of education that's needed where people say, well, what is this thing? Is this therapy? Is this life coaching? I don't know what this thing is. So that's a big piece that we need to figure out.
Yeah, and those are all like valid questions. And I can speak like you don't want to speak for all men. I don't want to speak for all therapists. And I would say that for me, it's appreciative that you put your trust in having coaches who are mental health therapists because, as you mentioned at the beginning, coaching is wild, wild west. Anybody can call themselves a coach. Without the proper training, it can do more harm than good. And so I think to me, again, I'm very biased because mental health therapists, we're quite biased about our field because there's a lot at stake. There's a lot of safety at stake. If you do not have the proper credentials and you just start calling yourself a coach and you don't have the ethics, the boundaries, the training, you can cause more harm than good, especially with vulnerable clients. And so having the standard of having a coach who are mental health trained, I think that catapults you more of, okay, this is a platform that we can trust.
I hope so. And I think that that's a trust that we'll need to earn continuously to do things right. So we look forward to doing that. And I think to your point on the extra value of having that person be a therapist, it's not just a checkbox for safety and trust for clients. It's also the ability for that person who's a mental health coach who has a background as a licensed therapist as well to be able to continuously assess and recognize if and when somebody needs an alternative level of support and get them to the right place. I think that's something that could be a very big differentiator and trust point for clients to know that I will not be siloed into an option that's not a good fit for me. If I do need therapy or I do need a more acute level of support, I will get there one way or another if I just get started with Wingman.
Yeah. Yeah. So, on the behalf of therapists who believe the way I do, we appreciate that.
Thank you. And I would just re-echo that we're a work in progress. So if there's anything on our website or even anything that I've said that doesn't add up or you think doesn't reflect the voices and concerns and needs of therapists, let me know because we know there's a lot of work to be done and we want to improve that to better support you.
Yeah. Final question for you. What does owning it mean to you?
What does owning it mean to me? What does owning it mean to me? It's a great question. So I know it's an important one for you and your podcast here. I think it means doing the work. And there was parallels into the different pieces that I mentioned so far. And I said it when I wanted to immerse myself in the mental health space as a non-expert and figure out what's been done before and how we can improve on it. So I think that's a good example of intentionality. So being able to assess what's important to you, what's important to the people that you're trying to support, and how can you work together to build a better future. So to me, in my life, It looks like being able to not run on autopilot all of the time, to be able to continuously assess, to take the time to reflect, to figure out my strengths, my weaknesses, my blind spots, and then proactively, just like Wingman with game planning, set up a game plan for how we're going to get there. It's taking my own medicine is the way that I think about it.
Taking the walk, is it, what was it, doing the walk and talk, doing the talk and the walk?
Walk the walk, or walk the talk. I don't know.
Somebody's tell us. I know yeah. I think it's, you're not doing the walk, no, not just talking, but you're doing the walk. Something
That's right.
like that. Yeah,
Something, yes.
yeah. It's accountability. It sounds like taking accountability, and
And I think that the one tie to that is that it's part of it, and it's a bit of a, what's the word? Is it oxymoron, or it's not right. It doesn't sound right to say that you need to be humble and say that
Mhm.
outward and seem humble. But I think you need to be able to look introspectively and recognize where you need to do work on yourself, because you'll never get to where you need to go if you can't recognize those blind spots and not repeat the same mistakes.
Mm. Emotional intelligence.
Yes, that's a good way to put it.
We should sure use more of that in this country right now. So yes, having the emotional intelligence and having being self-aware of what it is that you need to do to be better for yourself.
I think so. And I think, again, I think a lot of us are running on autopilot.
Yes,
It's
we are.
something that I think about is, one thing that I have going on is I feel like time goes too fast.
Yes.
Um, and I think about the best way to make time go faster is to look at your phone and scroll. It's just that you are just, pouring your life away time wise, right? So, and then
Mhm.
I think the opposite of that to me is meditation, the ability to slow down, to breathe, to be self-aware, to be intentional, to not let your thoughts run on autopilot. So that's a big part of it for me. It's how do you get out of that zone of the path of least resistance, of doing the same things over and over again, to be able to take a step back, to breathe, and to think about how you want to intentionally move forward with your days and your weeks and the life that you're building.
Wow. I feel like my podcast guests are my guests because they've all done their work. And I feel like you've
Mm.
done your work, Michael.
I'm a work in progress.
And we all are always work in progress. That's part of the journey, is you're always working on it. It never ends.
I'll tell you, I am excited to see who I am in 5 years, though. I am excited to see who I am in 10 years, though, by doing the work. So I appreciate the opportunity to share a little bit about my story and how I think about things. And even if a lot of it ends up being off the mark 2 years from now, I will have hopefully learned from that along the way as we start to build these resources for people.
Yeah. Any final words that you want to say, or that you feel that is
Hmm.
important for people to know?
Hmm. I think I would say there's two big things that I'm passionate about that tie hand in hand with each other. One is, of course, simplifying the equation around mental health. And then the other thing is just building mission driven organizations that make a difference in our communities. So I think about that through the lens of social entrepreneurship. So I would just say if I could put a message out there for anybody who's thinking about creating something that can make a difference, and it could be in any space. It could be making a more environmentally friendly dish soap. It could be in saving the world, and anything in between. My message would be to just get started. By no means do I have any of it figured out all the way with Wingman Mental Health, but every single day I've gotten a little bit closer, and everything has changed entirely from my original idea. So your original idea is not the end point. All that matters is whether or not you can get started, and then be resilient along the way to keep pushing, because the mission matters to you.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. As a solo entrepreneur too, you think you have it, and it's all about pivoting and modifying and going with the flow.
And there will be lots of ups and downs, and, well, very far downs, but as
Very
long as you
far
keep
downs,
working.
more downs and ups. And that's part of it. That's part of it. And that gives you the resilience.
Yes. And then I guess this is the last piece is, of course, if anybody is interested in trying Wingman Mental Health, there is a free trial. You can do a week completely for free, which I don't think we're going to hang on to forever because it's a lot of resources that we're putting out for people, honestly,
Yeah.
up front. But try it out in the short term. It's at wingmanmentalhealth.com. Hit the get started button and you can be signed up for that free trial in under a minute. And then if you're a therapist who's listening, one, give me crap and tell me what I'm doing wrong, number one. But then
They're
number
good
two,
about
there's
that.
there's the become a coach tab on there. So check it out. And if you are a licensed therapist who has some experience in coaching, feel free to sign up and I'd love to talk to you.
Yeah.
Oh, last point. If you are a community organization like a gym or a men's group or an employer organization, anybody else like that might potentially want to work with me and us, you can reach us at team@wingmanmentalhealth.com.
Okay. And I will put all of that in the description box. So all of your
Okay.
contact information and with the Wingman website will be all in the description box. So yeah, well, Michael, thank you so much for being here today. I learned a lot. It's always nice to talk to people who are making a difference in the world. And like you said, whether it's dish soap, whatever it is, the intention of owning it is to talk to people who are wanting to do and be better for the world. And you are definitely doing that.
I'm trying my best, so I appreciate it. And thanks for all of your questions and even the more sticky ones, because I think that these are the questions that are needed in order to sort of push us forward with our mission and hopefully help more people.
Yeah, definitely. I'm good about asking sticky questions. So
Keep them coming.
so everybody, yeah, thank you, Michael, for being here. And all of Michael's information will be down in the description box. And if you like this episode, hit the like and subscribe button. But otherwise, I will see you all next time. And again, all of Mike's information will be down in the description box. And try out Wingman, and see how that goes for you. So that is all today, Mike. Michael, do you have anything else to say?
That's it. Thanks so much for having me. And I appreciate your time and hopefully we talk again soon. Thanks everybody.
Bye bye.